Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's the founder of the Northwest Fighting Arts Portland Tai Chi Academy, and of course, having a 36 years of experience practicing and teaching the meditative and martial arts, no other than Mr. Jeff Patterson. Welcome, Mr. Jeff, and can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Hello, yeah, thank you for having me. I've been running my academy here in Portland, Oregon now for about 31 years now. And, when I first got started into the martial arts, I had no desire at all to get into the meditative arts. But I met this boxing coach back when I was about 19 years old. And he told me that if I really wanted to be good at boxing, that I should start doing Tai Chi and meditation. And at the time, I thought, isn't that for like old people in the park? How's that going to help me be a better fighter? And I started doing the practice because I had a lot of respect for him and I knew he was trying to help me. And not only did it make me a better boxer, but it's changed my life in so many ways. And through the years, I've had over 26,000 students come through my physical location here in Portland and thousands more on my online programs. And I've heard hundreds of stories of how the meditative arts has positively influenced people's lives along the way. And that's what's made me so passionate about trying to share the word and get the message out there. And that's what's inspired me to write my last few books and create all my online programs is just trying to help people understand how easy it is to integrate meditation into their life and create an evolving life practice with the meditative arts.
Mr. Jeff Patterson, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about excellent. That topics combines the profound goal of mastering stress with a specific evocative philosophy. So tell us, Mr. Jeff, the term yielding warrior is powerful. Could you unpack these apparent paradox? What does it mean to you yield like a warrior in the context of stress?
So, yielding is one of the many philosophical concepts in the meditative and martial arts, and something that I've always been very passionate about. In fact, my most recent book is called The Yielding Warrior, and I've broken down yielding into three main pillars. There's physical yielding, mental yielding, and emotional yielding. And physical yielding is what athletes use when they refer to the meditative arts and understanding how to develop that sensitivity and that ability to be more in tune with their body. It's the idea that, I push you and you push me, and whoever's the bigger, stronger person with the most leverage eventually would push the other person over. But with yielding, instead of us trying to see who the bigger meathead is, when you push me, I get out of the way of that force. And now I can respond with less effort. And so this is a very powerful concept in the martial arts as well as any kind of athletics, because oftentimes we're coming up against other athletes that are bigger, stronger, and faster than us. And without understanding the skill, it's hard to get the upper hand. Now, in order to be good at physical yielding, a lot of things have to come into play. You need to be well rooted. The lower part of your body needs to be strong and flexible so you can change your central equilibrium without getting tight. The body has to be relaxed, the breath has to be calm, and the mind has to be present. Now, while it may take a lifetime journey to really master these skills, once you start doing a meditative practice, you start to become more aware of these things inside yourself. And now, not only do you see them inside yourself, but you also start to see them more clearly in other people. And this is where it starts to become very interesting in that, say, for example, you and I are having a conversation And now we're moving into what I call mental yielding. And along the lines in that conversation, maybe I say something that unsettles you. And if I notice on that first sign of imbalance, maybe it's an energetic shift or a change in your breath or a change in your posture, it's a lot easier to adjust the path and keep us on a positive trajectory than if I'm not paying attention to that. And pretty soon I'm so far off track, you want to knock me upside the head. And so, learning how to use yielding in all of our interactions is extremely powerful. It's great for relationships, it's great for business, sales, negotiations. I mean, there's so many different ways that we can apply this concept. And then lastly, the third pillar of yielding is the idea of emotional yielding. And emotional yielding is very much like mental yielding, but with our own interpersonal conflicts. So, oftentimes, when something happens to us, we respond and we go down this path. And we might get an hour, a day, or a week down the road and realize maybe that wasn't the best choice. But with yielding, and we're able to step back and notice these emotions and these off-settled imbalances when something comes to us, and we're able to evaluate the scenario with a relaxed present mind, and oftentimes make a more educated decision that saves us a lot of heartache on the other side. And I've been explaining this idea of yielding now for over 30 years. And one of the most common things I'll hear people say is, yielding makes a lot of sense. In fact, I do yielding all the time. Well, I would agree in that I think everybody does some degree of yielding all the time. However, it's kind of like if you or I were to walk into a crime scene with a detective who's been on the job for 30 years. I guarantee you that person would see things about the series of events and the timeline that I know at least I would have no clue of. And the meditative arts helps us see things inside of ourselves and inside of other people that I truly believe most people will go through life and never have any clue of unless they have a meditation practice in their life.
Meditation for sure. And Mr. Jeff, what is or how does the yielding warrior approach differ from a common advice to fight stress or conversely to simply avoid stressful situation?
So, part of using the meditative arts to avoid stress is enhancing our awareness. And we do this with ritual practices, active practices, and philosophical practices. Ritual practices are when we set time aside every day and we maybe do some breath work or a sitting meditation or maybe a Tai Chi form, something that helps us maintain our focus. Now, through the years, one of the most common things I've heard people say is, I've tried meditation and it just didn't work for me. I couldn't quiet the mind. And somewhere along the way, people got this misguided idea that in order to be successful with meditation, that you need to be in this state of nirvana where nothing is distracting you. And they couldn't be further from the truth because I've spent my whole career traveling around the world studying with some amazing meditation practitioners, and I have never once met anybody who doesn't get distracted. The idea is if you're doing a movement practice or a sitting practice and you're there for 20 minutes, you may get distracted 50 times during that session. But what happens is we notice these imbalances and we use our posture, our breath, our movement to help come back to center and find that focus. And doing this every day, every month, every year, we start to develop this ability to find that center amongst any chaos that comes our way. And this is the idea of a ritual practice. Then we also integrate active practices throughout the day, and these are very powerful as well. These are things that you can do when you're walking down the street or standing in line at the grocery store. And the basic idea is how can we integrate these awareness rituals and practices into our everyday life? Because the meditative arts is meant to be a way we live and not a hobby that we do once in a while. And so by having a solid ritual practice and integrating some active practices along with some philosophical practices to help train and strengthen the mind, we build a life practice that helps us see these stressors and understand how to make adjustments when we start getting out of balance.
Interesting, Mr. Jeff. In many martial arts, yielding is a source of strength, like Aikido or using an opponent's energy. How can we apply that principle through attack to modern stress?
It's a lot like, when we talked about when I was explaining the pillars of yielding, we have physical yielding, we have mental yielding, and we have emotional yielding. So, physical yielding, somebody pushes me and I move out of the way. And now I respond at an angle where they're weak rather than finding their strength. And this allows me to get the other hand. If a problem arises and we don't notice the imbalance until we're already unstable and stressed out and have been dealing with it for hours, it's very hard to change that momentum of negative energy that we've created. But when we see things more clearly and are more present and notice these imbalances when they first happen, because we have a daily meditation practice, we're able to make adjustments before too many emotions get involved, before too much negative energy starts shifting. And that's one of the many ways of how we can use this to help regulate our physical, mental, and emotional well being. And this is so important because that's what this practice is all about. It teaches us to regulate these things so we can make adjustments along the way and have more clarity and awareness of both our physical, mental, and emotional states all day, every day. And we do this by what we call the five regulations. There's basically five regulations that are the core principles of any meditation practice. And they are regulating the body, regulating the breath, regulating the mind, regulating the energy, and regulating the spirit. And briefly, I'll kind of touch on what I mean when I say these different areas. So, the first, regulating the body. This is where we oftentimes will begin because it's the easiest one to see quick results. So, say for example, you're sitting in front of your computer for 3 or 4 hours, your shoulders are rounded forward, you're feeling lethargic and burnout, maybe your neck's getting sore. And another time when the most important person in your world walks in the room and your body perks up and you feel like energetically like you're on top of the world. Well, these two different energetic states, we are in 100% control of all day, every day. And so, learning how to regulate our alignment, our physical tension in the body, and how we move the energy in the body is very powerful. Now, at a little bit of a deeper level of that body regulation will be maintaining some sort of muscular structure and flexibility, eating a healthy diet, and getting an appropriate amount of sleep. All of these things are part of that body regulation pillar. Then we have regulating the breath. And regulating the breath is a very deep topic. And in fact, Qigong is often referred to as the science of the breath because there's literally hundreds of different breathing strategies. And because of this, we broadly categorize them into yin methods and yang methods. Yin methods are often deeper, more holistic style of meditations that help bring that energy inward. And this is great for stress reduction, dealing with anxiety, with panic attacks. It's good for boosting our creativity. Then we have the yang side of the breath, which is more aggressive. It's kind of like if you ever had to push your car, you pick up something heavy, your natural instinct is to exhale, put tension in the breath, maybe even make the breath audible. Now, when we do this, we expand the energy. In having this understanding, now we can use the breath to regulate our physical, mental, and emotional well being throughout the day. You know, a lot of people, we all do, we go through the day with emotional ups and downs. Well, some people are maybe a little more like a roller coaster. Others of us maybe be a little more balanced. But when you start to see yourself get excited, we can use the breath to help settle you. And when you start feeling depleted, we use that yang side of the breath to help build us up and energize us. So, using the breath is a very powerful tool in this practice. Then the next pillar is the idea of the mind. And we touched on this briefly when we talked about understanding the purpose of meditation and that it's okay to be distracted. There's this story that I enjoy about these two old monks, and they're walking down this dirt road after a huge rainstorm, and they come up to this big mud puddle. And on the other side of the puddle is this beautiful little girl, and she's standing there in a white dress, but she's crying. And the older of the two monks, he hollers across the puddle and says, "Is everything okay? Can we help you?" And she says, "I need to be somewhere, but if I walk across this puddle, I'm going to get my dress all dirty." And so the older monk, he rolls up his pant legs and he walks across the puddle. He picks her up, puts her on his back, takes her to the other side, sets her down, and she's off on her way. Well, him and the younger monk are walking a couple miles further down the road. And finally, the younger monk is just furious and he says, "You know that we're not supposed to touch girls, but you did back there at the puddle." And the older monk looks down and says, "You're still thinking about that girl? I left her back there at the puddle." And how many times in life do we need to get 2 miles down the muddy road before we realize we got to let that thing go? And so, learning how to regulate the mind is the third pillar. The fourth pillar, regulating the energy, is an extremely deep topic and something that we could literally talk for hours about. But the basic idea of this is once we've reached a competent level in regulating the body, the breath, and the mind, we now have the tools to regulate the energy in the body and lead it inward, to extend it outward, and to use that to get different outcomes. And then the fifth and final pillar is regulating the spirit. And this is a very profound idea, but a basic idea of how we can apply this in everyday life is notice when you get excited, oftentimes when that excitement level elevates, so does the tension in the body. When we can learn how to raise that excitement or that spirit and stay relaxed and focused, now we can perform at a higher level, be more present, more aware. And this is often some of the things that happen when athletes refer to that flow state. They get to this peak mental awareness state, but their body's relaxed and present and just feels like everything is clicking. This is kind of one of the many applications of cultivating the practice for that spiritual development. So, as you can see, by using these five regulations, anything you do can benefit from this practice.
Interesting, Mr. Jeff. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well, geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and mental health 101, love letters in third season, and movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Chuff, the title, The Yielding Warrior present powerful paradox. How do you define what it means to be a yielding warrior, and why is it apparent contradiction the secret of true potential?
So oftentimes when people hear the term yielding, they think it means giving up. And it couldn't be further from the truth. Understanding how to yield allows us to be strategic. It allows us to be present, and it shows us how to find the path of least resistance. Oftentimes in military battle, they use yielding strategies to get ahead. So it can be very aggressive. It's not something meaning that you have to give up or give way. Yielding is very strategic. Now, for those of you that are thinking about taking on a meditative practice, there's so many things that you want to consider when doing this. And one is you have to have the idea of consistency. Consistency with the practice, meaning you've got to yield to distractions that are pulling away. You've got to yield to those motivations that are taking you away from your focus and away from your goals and the things that you're going to do. With that, we have to have the discipline and the integrity and the perseverance, and that through that consistency, it allows us to start to create a practice that becomes part of who we are. And in order for it to stick, what I've found is that you need to find some time thinking about what it is that's drawing you to a meditative practice. Because if you don't have a strong why, it's easy to fall off track and not be consistent. So maybe for you, it's dealing with a stress disorder, or just being healthier so you can watch your grandkids grow up, or maybe you want to improve your performance on the field. Whatever that is for you, spend some time really thinking about that and think about all of the positive things that will change if you do accomplish that. And then I like to tell people also flip the coin and think about all of the negative things that won't change if you don't integrate this. And in doing this, we start to have the reasons that are going to get us out of bed when the alarm goes off rather than hitting the snooze button. And you stop looking at this practice as something like a chore that you have to do, and you start looking at it as something you get to do because you see so many benefits from doing this practice. And then lastly, when you're taking on a practice like this, you need to find a guide, somebody that's going to help point you in the right direction. I've been studying for 36 years. I'm still a student learning all the time. And if you think you're going to go on YouTube and sift through the millions of videos out there and get any kind of depth in your practice, you're going to waste a lot of time. So, for those of you on the fence thinking about a meditation practice, think about why. What's your reason? Understand that when you approach it, you have to be consistent. And then lastly, find somebody in your corner that's going to help point you in the right direction. It'll save you a lot of time. And I guarantee you, if you do it and you keep it up for at least a year, you'll never stop doing it. And it'll be one of the best things you ever do for yourself.
So, lastly, Mr. Jeff, if you could leave our readers with one fundamental insight or practice from the book that they could carry with them forever, what would it be?
Understand that meditation is an evolving practice and that you need to have ritual practices, active practices, and philosophical practices to create a life practice. It's not one path fits all, it's evolving. And so make sure that if you approach this and look into a practice like this, don't get stuck in the path that you do this one meditation practice and that's your narrow view of meditation, because there's so much more involved there. You have to have the understanding of that, so you can really benefit and see all of the beautiful things that will come from a practice like this.
Definitely, Mr. Jeff Patterson. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
So right now I'm working on my next book. It's called The Yielding Athlete. It's teaching athletes how to integrate the meditative arts to improve their performance. That's been fun. I've also been working with a lot of academy owners from all over the country, showing them how to integrate a meditative practice into their martial arts academy. And so it's been keeping me busy.
Indeed, yes, people, let's support Mr. Jeff Patterson because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering books to come, more and more empowering business to come, and for sure, more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Jeff, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me. You take care.
More to come, people. See you soon.